Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 1966. Now, this is the TV special that everyone's seen, everyone knows. It's not the Jim Carrey movie, which I might do later. I've always loved this special. I think most people love this special. There's lots of lists where it comes up as the best Christmas special of all time, and this is maybe the one I've watched the most. And it's partly because the songs are so great, it's partly because of the animation, it's partly because of the acting, it's partly because of the writing and just the whole package and what it says about Christmas. And it's a good Christmas story. It's very condensed, it's very short, but just sort of absolutely wonderful. This was directed by Chuck Jones, written by Dr. Seuss, and then starring Boris Karloff, which to me already is pretty perfect, I have to say. With uncredited voices by June Foray and Thurl Ravenscroft, who sings the songs. This was kind of part of a wave of 1960s holiday specials, which have continued to air on at least American TV to this day, including Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, I believe the Peanut special of the 60s, just like a ton of them that like continue to not go away. I can't imagine the Christmas season without those specials at this point. And they're all fairly well done, but I think the difference between those and this one is this one had Chuck Jones. This is post his work on the Looney Tunes and post even his Tom and Jerry run, and really towards the end of him making short subjects. And the first TV special he would make a ton of different TV specials. He had previously met Dr. Seuss while they worked on the Private Snafu films during World War II, which Private Snafu, a favorite of Saber Sparks, and I believe a video I did research on is the video I talked about it with, I forget now. That's how they initially met, and Chuck Jones had always wanted to do something with one of his books and chose The Grinch. And Dr. Seuss was not as into the idea, given that the film he worked on, The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, didn't really work out, and he didn't really like working on that. So he wasn't sure, but he trusted him, and was even not sure about Boris Karloff, who does most of the voices other than June Foray, who plays Cindy Lou Who, and Thurl Ravenscroft, who does the music and helps do some of the singing as well. But most of it is Boris Karloff either. I think it says like all sounds or something, most sounds made by Boris Karloff, and then gives him credit for narrating as well. And he does narrate and do the voice of the Grinch. He does, in part, most of the time when he's narrating, sounds like a grandfather. He was a lot older at that point, reading a story to his grandkids, which I love that sense to it. I love that rhyming comfort throughout his narration, but also comfort in the way that you know he's going to be the steady voice going on throughout it, but you also know when he switches to the Grinch, even though it's the same voice, I mean, obviously because you see the Grinch talking, but in terms of a vocal performance, you can actually physically feel the difference between the two. And Boris Karloff, who, you know, obviously from the Universal Monsters and Frankenstein and The Mummy and countless others, he was a really well-trained actor. He was just so adaptable. He found the perfect way to deliver it. He was perfectly able to show the meanness of the Grinch, and it almost felt like he got why exactly he was saying almost everything. You know, there's a certain intelligence that runs through almost everything Boris Karloff does as an actor that gives a gravitas to what he's doing that I just frankly love. Like even something that might have even at the time not be considered the smartest or most intelligent or most mature thing, he treated as such. And I think the performance of Boris Karloff in this is one of the real specials of this special, because he is able to really bring out the kind of sense of an adult being like, well, Christmas is all consumerism, Christmas isn't anything, Christmas is this and that, Christmas is you know, junk and all these things. And really what Christmas is, I'm not really a religious person. Christmas to me is always just being with your family and having a good time. And if you think of the memories, the real memories that stay with you and the real joy you have at Christmas, it's and not speaking as like an older dad or something, but it's really true. It's getting to hang out with your family, having those memories, even watching a movie or doing those things. And the reason you get the toys is to make that day so much more special and give you all something to have a good time, have a wonderful day, enjoy together, listen to that record together, listen to it by yourself, away from everyone if you want to, but make sure everyone has an amazing day. That's what really Christmas is all about. It's about having good food, seeing your family, seeing your mom, you know, like dance to a record because she's having a good time. I've never looked at it as any sort of negative. It's always been a really wonderful day for me every year, and especially now that I have a daughter. And I think this like reflects that. Frankly, I think if someone had stolen like literally everything in the place I lived, I would probably be like really upset regardless of what day it was. But because it was Christmas, because it is that day that has so much joy, I don't think even I would want that to go away. What Dr. Seuss does so well in that book and what this special does so well is it kind of reminds you of like, that's why we love Christmas and having that time off together and being able to all be together, is because we can have that wonderful time and hug each other and be able to see each other and all that great stuff. And I think Boris Karloff's performance, he understands that. Like, he almost knows that. Like, I feel like he's had some good Christmases. Or maybe he hasn't. He sells it so well, and Dr. Seuss sells it so well. And Chuck Jones with his animation kind of like makes you appreciate that Christmas and almost like get both the commercial side of it, because you do have sort of a major turn, the commercial junkie side, like what are even these things they're talking about? There's Dr. Seuss nonsense, and he's able to show that through that, but then when it changes, you show what Christmas is really about and so forth. Chuck Jones's animation in this, you know, I think the most infamous thing he did is make the Grinch green. The Grinch was not green in the Dr. Seuss book. He was just black and white. And Chuck Jones changed that and made the Grinch green. He also, I think, even though the Grinch was designed before by Dr. Seuss, the special came out, I always felt that Chuck Jones' animation of the Grinch reminded me a little of Wile E. Coyote, which was a big Chuck Jones creation. It reminds me a bit of Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote cartoons. Just the animation. There's nothing really about it necessarily. It doesn't go under the same rules. I wouldn't say it's Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner-esque or anything like that. Just his design and how he moves and everything reminds me of Wile E. Coyote so much. Not that that's a bad thing, and I think Chuck Jones is much more of an older master animator directing this, and I really love that about this special. I think it works so well because he feels so self-assured, like he almost like knows exactly each beat to hit, and he was doing more experimental shorts at this time and testing the limits and stuff, but it's almost like he understood like how to literally adapt this perfectly, and I sort of really like that about this special. It's different from like the Peanuts people were younger and the other people making it, you know, it's a different vibe. Most directors, any director of any medium, it's mostly younger directors are the ones who make like the really iconic kind of stuff, and the older directors don't make stuff that's necessarily as good or as iconic. It's just certainly how it works. It's not an ageist thing necessarily. I mean, like, how many of you are talking about Ready Player One, or how many of you are talking about Black Panther? And if you look at, you know, the real iconic films of any era, it's usually, not necessarily always, but a lot of times is. And I think with Chuck Jones in this, there's such a self-assurance. He relies on the material, and he relies on even the weaknesses of it, in that this, if you read the book, apparently, I saw on the Frederator video for the 107 Facts, it would be about 12 minutes. So they do have those songs in there, they do have various gags and so forth. And I've talked about the before with TV production as someone who does do a TV show, even if it's on public access, sometimes you do have to fill time. And this is one of the more organic ways, because you wouldn't think of like, hey, why do they have songs in the Grinch? Why do they have this extended sequence of him taking things like that isn't in the book? And it's mainly because they needed to fill time. They had to fill a half hour, and so they had to have songs and so forth, which are amazing. So I love every song in it. They're just so wonderful, and I love the singing of Thurl Ravenscroft. I think he does a great job. Like, he almost understands the mechanics of everything and how to use it so well. And that's why, like, there's almost no moment in the Grinch that feels wasted. It feels so perfectly constructed. I think there's something about like the older Hollywood way of directing things that you almost like sort of take it for granted, because they're sort of studio directors and they understand the assembly line. And let me tell you, Chuck Jones understood the assembly line, and he was understood how to wield it and make it work for him. And he definitely 100% does that with his direction in this. I would actually say this is maybe one of his best directed things ever. Like, if I'm going to say what did Chuck Jones do, say, you know, the Looney Tunes stuff, Bugs Bunny, Wile E. Coyote, and Roadrunner, but specifically what he does with this is really something special and really shows how great of an animation director he was. I've always loved this special. I'm excited to, I didn't get to watch it for this review with my daughter. I'm definitely going to. The thing about this special is I always thought it was so perfect, I never understood even wanting to do another adaptation. And maybe that's kind of radical. I didn't see the Jim Carrey one because I was like, well, why? I don't understand why you'd even do that. And to me, this is one of those things that just so perfectly encapsulated the book. I probably know this special and have seen it more times than I've ever read the book. I like the book. I think I like the special more because Boris Karloff doesn't come to my house and read it to me. Not that I want his ghost to. There's just so many of the things come together for the Grinch special they've always just loved. The music is iconic. What Boris Karloff is doing as performance is frankly amazing. And seeing like these kind of guys who, you know, are farther into their careers really doing their top-notch work. That's something I love about classic Hollywood. That's something I love about big Hollywood, is sometimes they're like, what if we have all these like really well-trained technicians, really well-trained actors at the top of their game, really selling this material? And I think that's something about Dr. Seuss. It plays like, you know, almost like a big Technicolor musical, where you have, you know, everyone making the sets and the music and the cinematography, like pulling out all the stops. And it really feels that way in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It feels like Boris Karloff is giving it his all in this performance. It feels like Chuck Jones is giving all of his talents to this. Dr. Seuss pretty much already wrote this, but, you know, he did a good job too. This is, to me, is probably one of the most iconic Dr. Seuss adaptations ever. It maybe isn't my favorite book, but I think oftentimes what you'll find is maybe not your favorite book by the person becomes your favorite like piece of media. And I think The Grinch just works so amazingly well. I love The Grinch. I love his dog. And this is just such an immaculate special. I probably don't need to tell you to see it, but if it's been a while since you see it, watch it again and you'll be like, oh man, this thing is still great and it still works and it's still wonderful and it gives you all the amazing holiday cheer. And I think that's what The Grinch is really supposed to do, is do much like The Christmas Story, which was actually an influence on this, almost maybe does it a little more streamlined, and I don't know if it does it better, it does it differently. It sells it in such a way that it leaves you going like, man, that is what Christmas is about. And as corny as that is, and I know every Christmas special tries, but I don't think they ever succeed as much as The Grinch does by stealing absolutely everything in capitalism and taking it away and showing you how much fun Christmas really is. So if you've seen, and I'm sure you have, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Two things. One, it originally aired on December 18th, 1966. Also, number two, I guess, I would have worn a Santa Claus hat, but it was like really high in my closet and like I didn't really want to get all the boxes down, so I didn't. So sorry. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.